Hey T-Squad, it's Kirsty, and today we're getting into something a lot of people pretend not to see, but every creator, every viewer, and honestly, every human who's been online knows very well. The comments section. You know exactly what I mean. The place where some people are lovely, supportive, funny, and others turn into part-time psychologists, full-time bullies, and Olympic-level keyboard warriors. People who would never say a quarter of this to your face, but behind a screen there's suddenly a mix between a fight promoter and a judge, jury, and executioner. Today we're not just ranting about it, we're doing a deep dive. We're talking about the psychology behind the comments. Why people act so brave online, why they become cruel or extreme, and what's really going on in the minds of these so-called keyboard warriors. Because trust me, it is not as simple as they're just mean. There's a whole cocktail of psychology happening down there. So, grab your tea, because after this, you're never gonna look at a comment section the same way again. Let's get into it. First, let's start with the basic question. Why does someone who can't even complain about cold fries in person suddenly feel brave enough online to tell a stranger to kill themselves, insult their looks, their kids, their health, all in a public comment? The answer starts with something psychologists call online disinhibition. That sounds technical, but it's simple. In real life, when you talk to someone face-to-face, your brain is doing a lot of work in the background. It's reading their facial expressions, their body language, their tone of voice. You're aware of other people around, social rules, the possibility of conflict, embarrassment, consequences. Online, most of that is gone. You're looking at a screen. You can't see the impact on the other person. You don't see their eyes well up. You don't see their shoulders drop. You don't hear their voice crack. Your brain doesn't get that instant feedback that says, "Hey, that hurt them." And when there's no emotional feedback, people feel more free to say things they would normally filter out. That's online disinhibition, the filter disappears. For some people, it shows up as oversharing or being more honest. For others, it shows up as aggression, cruelty, and just straight-up vile comments. The screen acts like a mask, and behind a mask, some people get brave. But it's not real bravery. It's buffered bravery. Now, let's add the next ingredient, anonymity and distance. Think how different it feels to say something to someone standing in front of you versus typing it to a stranger whose real name you don't know and will never meet. If you send a nasty comment to a creator, what's the worst that happens to you? Maybe your comment gets deleted. Maybe you get blocked. That's it. There's no awkward silence. No one in the room gives you a look like, "What is wrong with you?" No immediate social cost. Anonymity gives people this fake sense of power. They can create a profile with a random name and picture and feel untouchable. That sense of "no one can touch me" is what allows them to type things they'd never dare say if their job, family, or actual reputation were attached to it. In real life, most people are conflict avoidant. They don't like arguments, they don't like confrontation, they don't want a scene. But online, the comment section has become the easiest place to pick fights, start drama, and unload emotions without taking real responsibility. So, it's not that these people are bold. It's that the environment is safe for their worst impulses. Another huge piece of this puzzle is something called de-individuation. Basically, when you're part of a crowd, you stop thinking like me and start thinking like we. And when people feel like they're part of a big group, they feel less personally responsible for their actions. Online, this happens all the time. You see one hate comment do numbers. It gets likes, replies, maybe even pinned. Suddenly, other people start jumping on the same energy. "Oh, everyone's dragging this person? Cool, I'll add mine." And then you've got a thread of people all trying to outdo each other with the most savage clapback, the harshest insult, the most brutally honest take. If the exact same people were alone, in a quiet room, speaking to you one-on-one, you'd get a completely different version of them. They'd probably soften their words, hesitate, backtrack, or not say anything at all. But in a crowd, and especially a digital crowd, people feel less visible and less accountable. They become part of the mob. And mobs do things individuals would never do alone. That's why you see dog piles. One creator makes a mistake or gets accused of something, and suddenly their comment section is full of people who have never interacted with them before, calling them every name under the sun. It's not 1,000 people all independently deciding to be awful at once. It's human psychology reacting to numbers and social cues. They see others doing it. They feel justified, even rewarded. And they stop seeing themselves as someone being cruel and start seeing themselves as part of the crowd that's right. Now, let's talk about one of the spiciest parts of all this: projection. A lot of people's nastiest comments have nothing to do with you. They're a mirror of themselves. If someone is insecure about their appearance, they're more likely to obsess over yours. If someone feels powerless, they're more likely to act controlling or aggressive. If someone feels like a failure, they might be the first to scream, "You've fallen off," in your comments. The comment section becomes somewhere people dump their emotions. Stress, jealousy, boredom, resentment. All of that gets channeled into a quick, nasty sentence under your video. The wild part is, in that moment, they feel relief. They feel like they've taken back some control by tearing someone else down. But it's not power. It's a release valve. A temporary hit that doesn't fix anything in their life, it just spreads the negativity around. This is why so many hate comments feel irrational. You read it and think, where did that come from? Because it didn't come from your content. It came from their internal mess. There's another layer here too: parasocial relationships. Viewers feel like they know you. They see you in their feed all the time, they hear your voice, they know your opinions, they've watched your ups and downs. To them, you're not some stranger online. You're someone they've built a one-sided relationship with. So when you do something they don't like, or they disagree with your take, it can feel personal to them. They'll type things like, "You've changed," "I'm so disappointed in you," or "I used to respect you." In their mind, they're not shouting at a content creator. They're talking to someone who betrayed their expectations. Someone who stopped behaving the way they wanted. They feel entitled to your behavior. Entitled to your tone. Entitled to what you cover, how you cover it, and how emotional you're allowed to be. And entitlement plus anonymity is a very messy combo. So when they drop these long, angry comments lecturing you or trying to shame you, it often comes from this place of, you owe me something as a viewer, and you didn't deliver. But if you put that same person in a room with you, hand them a microphone and say, "Okay, say it to my face," unedited, most of them would freeze. Because suddenly, there's no parasocial fantasy. There's just two humans in a room, and the power dynamic changes. We also have to talk about how the platforms themselves encourage extreme comments. The algorithm rewards engagement. It doesn't care if that engagement is love, hate, confusion, or a full-on war in the replies. A polite, nuanced comment with, "I see your point, but I also think," that doesn't usually get 100 likes. But a spicy, disrespectful one? "Wow, this is disgusting. You're actually sick." Or, "Imagine being this dumb, couldn't be me." Those get attention. They get reactions. They get, quote, replies. And attention is a reward. So people learn very quickly. If they want to stand out in a giant comment section, reasonable won't cut it. They have to go bigger, sharper, meaner, more dramatic. They might not sit there consciously thinking, "I'm going to be vile so the algorithm notices me." But their brain remembers what gets likes. Online, extreme gets seen. And what gets seen gets repeated. Now, let's talk about how this feels from the creator side for a second. Imagine you put hours into a video. You research, you script, you edit, you export, upload, do all the tags, the SEO, the thumbnail, everything. The majority of comments might be positive or neutral. But your brain? Your brain will laser focus on the 2 or 3 really nasty ones. That's not weakness, by the way. That's human. We're wired from survival days to notice threats more than compliments. So when a keyboard warrior drops in with, "This is fake AI trash," you're exploiting people. "You look awful," or "Why are you still posting?" Even if you logically know they're probably projecting, bored, or seeking attention, it still lands. And this is why understanding the psychology is important. Not just to judge them, but to protect yourself. When you understand what's going on, you stop telling yourself the story that everyone hates me or they're right, I shouldn't be doing this. Instead, you can see it for what it is. Someone using your comment section as a dumping ground for their own stuff. Someone feeling bold behind a screen, who would absolutely fold if asked to say the same thing eye to eye. Let's also be real, not every harsh comment is pure hate. Some people are just bad at communicating. They might genuinely have feedback, but instead of saying, "Hey, I'm not sure about this angle, here's why," they go straight to, "This is disgusting, you've lost the plot." Why? Because online, nuance doesn't feel powerful. People equate softness with weakness and aggression with honesty. So you get people who think being rude equals keeping it real. They wear cruelty like a personality trait. But again, most of them wouldn't keep that same energy in real life. If anything, a calm face-to-face conversation would expose how unsure they actually are. So what do we do with all this? For viewers, before you type that comment, ask yourself, would I say this to their face, in front of other people with my real name and job attached? If the answer is no, maybe you're not actually being honest. You're being reckless. For creators, remember, the loudest voices in the comments are not always the most accurate reflection of your audience. They're just the most activated. Some are hurt, some are jealous, some are bored, some are spoiling for a fight they can't have anywhere else in their life. You are not obligated to carry all of that. Use the tools available: block, mute, filter words, turn off comments when you need a break, or let your mods handle it. That's not weakness, that's boundaries.